Welcome to the Dairy News and Views podcast, a production of the Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Dairy Team. Our podcast covers current educational, research, and industry tools available for your operation to manage healthy cows and calves while producing the highest quality dairy products. Thanks for joining us today on Dairy News and Views from the ISU Dairy Team. I'm Jen Bentley, Northeast Iowa Dairy Field Specialist, and today I'm here with our Extension Dairy Team colleagues as we reflect on 2024 in our extension work and look into the coming year of 2025. So I want to welcome Extension Dairy Team members, and why don't we just have you introduce yourselves as we start the podcast?
All right, I'm Philip Jardin. I'm the one of the dairy extension veterinarians.
I'm Gail Carpenter. I'm the state dairy specialist.
I'm Fred Hall. I'm the specialist in Western Iowa.
Larry Tranel, the specialist in Northeast, Southeast Iowa.
And I'm Carolyn Eady, the small ruminant outreach specialist for Iowa State and UW-Madison.
Well, thanks for joining us. And our audience has probably heard your voices a number of times throughout the year as we've talked about different topics. And I guess today we're just kind of having an open discussion on our work and just invite anybody to kind of kick it off as far as some past reflections on their year.
Well, I think it's hard to remember what happened in 2024, but if I think back to the beginning of the year, we started with Dairy Days in January. I think this year we're going to have them in February, but last year and for most years we've had our Dairy Days events in January and had the opportunity to drive around the state and meet with Iowa dairy producers. And Philip and I and Greg Pallas, who was also one of our speakers, we made a goal to stop at a meat locker everywhere we visited. So got to try some of Iowa's ag products and shop small and explore the Iowa countryside a bit. So I also learned that Philip has an extensive knowledge of random Iowa trivia. So by the time we got to the end of the drive, I'd just point at a town sign and say, "Hey, Philip, what do you know about this town?" And he'd always know something. So
I'll have to bring you the book my son has on Iowa's oddities and curiosities.
Is my name listed there?
As which one of those, an oddity or a curiosity, or both?
Or both.
You're just Volume 2 is just Fred Hall.
Yeah, I think what stuck out for me, a lot of it was just some of the work we did with the dairy goats on doing the financial analysis, both in Iowa and Wisconsin. Had the nice opportunity to present it at the American Cheese Society in Buffalo, which was a nice little kind of gig that I hadn't been part of that group at all. So it's kind of a nice little place to present that. And the biggest thing I kind of found is, there's this profitability. The goats are kind of like all over the place. We've got some people making money, but they're sure looking for some milk, and also kind of working with the grass milk organic producers as well, kind of doing a model with them. I think those are probably the two biggest ones, in addition to some of the milking parlors that we continue to see built with the low cost thought in mind, and just doing some financial analysis with different types of dairy farms that kind of work through transitions from one generation to the next, and kind of use that financial analysis kind of as a tool just to make sure it can work out and give them kind of a map to kind of work with. So it's always been kind of rewarding, not just this year, but throughout the career.
From my perspective, I think I saw the most conversation with our dairy economists concerning the federal market order proposed changes, and now their changes that dairymen will be voting on. A lot of amazing discussion, well, what if this happened, then what's the unexpected consequence? So that was maybe the top thing that I saw this past year, starting back, early summer through right now.
And I would say, we concluded our extension RME grant focusing on raising your dairy best heifer this fall. So that was just a really great educational series in a lot of different ways through the on-farm meetings and the webinar series that we did, and traveling with Gail to Kansas and working with Dr. Victor Gomez in Kansas there with his producers. Learned a lot working with all kinds of producers that way, and still, talking about liquid gold, that colostrum management. I know we might be beating people in the head with that colostrum management, management, but it always seems like we're learning something new in that area and the benefits that it's having long term on our animals and the success of our dairy operations because of that one day of life. So I just think that's pretty cool to still continue those conversations.
And just a reminder, if anybody, the grant is concluded, but if anybody who's listening to this wants us to come out and weigh your heifers for you and talk to you about heifer development, we love doing farm visits. I'm always looking for an excuse to get out of Ames. Love Ames, but like seeing the rest of Iowa as well. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're listening to this and think that you'd still like to be involved with something like that, because that is something that we are still offering. So never, and in general, probably just never hesitate to reach out to any of us. We're a group of people who really loves answering questions from big farms and small farms and everything in between.
And I think for me, one of the biggest things, probably the elephant in the room, is the high path avian influenza coming to dairy cattle. That happened. We were first diagnosed that in March after this unusual disease was happening in Texas. Then I've been very happy working with this team. Actually, tomorrow night, we're recording this on Monday, but no, tonight. Today's Tuesday, right? Tonight, we're going to have our 5th webinar on the topic as new things have come up. Our team's been very active in getting the word out about new regulations and that kind of thing. It's been an interesting year that way. I know there's an old Chinese proverb that says something like, "May you live in interesting times," and that was certainly the case for 2024 with this disease decided to go from birds to dairy cattle.
And we appreciate your leadership with that, Phil, because I think all of us had to kind of tool up a little bit because with all the county fairs and all the regulations, we all had to get pretty heavily involved. But yeah, we appreciated your leadership and help us know what's out there and what's coming.
Well, thank you. But I think a lot of leadership came from you guys. I know there were times when I was thinking, do we really need to do another virtual chat? And Fred would push me to do it. And after that we got done, I was thinking it was the right thing. We needed to get the word out about information.
I think that's the nice thing just about the team. That's, there's a lot of expertise that we all have and just kind of working together. And I just think of like whether it be the Farm Couple Getaway that I've worked with Fred and Jen over the years, just how that camaraderie and just the joint efforts on some of those types of things or some of the farm visits we might do jointly, how it just, I think it helps the farmer as well, but it kind of gives a more wholesome approach to trying to help the producers.
Yeah, I think probably one of my favorite team events from the year was our tailgate that we had in November. It was a fun game. It was a fun crowd. It was great to have everybody back here on campus and to celebrate Iowa State football and the Iowa dairy industry. We're a team that works hard, but we also know how to build community and have a good time.
I think one of the things that this high path really brought to the forefront, being in the middle of it, is the biosecurity. We're talking different conversations than we were talking a year ago, and we're talking to different people. I know I've got Dr. Sato's phone number on speed dial, and I've met and visited with some of our poultry folks up here. We might just live a half a mile away, but a lot of times they hadn't communicated. We hadn't communicated. So I think this really has shined the light on this idea of biosecurity.
Yeah, that's a good point. And combine those last 2 points there. At the tailgate, the day before the tailgate, we had a meeting on biosecurity where our colleague on the beef side, the beef veterinarian, Dr. Grant Duell, went through the biosecurity trailer, and that was very well received by the attendees there, learning more about what we should be thinking about on dairy operations that make them, I don't want to say as similar to the poultry and swine people, but they tend to have a longer history with biosecurity, and now we're learning that we have to kind of catch up with that.
Piggybacking a little bit with Gail's thing with the tailgate, I guess one of the things I thought of, she was saying that is just you take a look at, doing things that are a little more positive. And I think this has been more of a positive year after you come off COVID and then getting through a lot of the high path type stuff. I just think people's optimism seems a little higher this year. And I started thinking that, it's probably the first year where I probably had at least 4 or 5 young producers wanting to get back started in the dairy industry, which, during the COVID time and some of those depressed prices, I didn't see that. And so it's just kind of nice to see that maybe mental health is coming back a little bit and the optimism of the dairy industry is coming back because we're sure looking for, more different types of milk, whether it be organic, grass-fed, and the conventional milk price is pretty good too. We're looking for more goat milk, and I just think there's some optimism here that we need to be proud of.
For sure. And I guess I'd invite Carolyn. I know you're newer to our extension, Iowa State University Extension and Outreach team. So as you kind of reflect on your working in Iowa, have any thoughts for the year?
Yes, thank you. So I've enjoyed getting to know this team. It's an amazing team, how they do work together and have the interest of the producers at heart. And it's a really amazing team to work with. So thank you for inviting me to work with you all. I've also enjoyed getting out to know and learn a little bit more about the small ruminant dairy production in Iowa and a little bit more in Wisconsin too. So it's great to be part of the team, and I enjoy those the dairy days that we've had down in Kelowna and learning all that with you. So thank you for having me.
So 2024 is nearing end here as we are recording this podcast. And so as we reflected on 2024, I just want to ask the group thoughts looking into 2025. Any goals, things that you're looking forward to in the next couple of months as we enter into the year? Anything you want to share there?
Well, so every year I pick a word of the year. I don't do New Year's resolutions. I do a word of the year. And my word of the year for 2025 is impact, which I think ties in very well with extension. We are always looking for how our work makes a difference. And that's part of what I love about being an extension is that what we do makes a difference. And it doesn't matter, again, if you are a backyard producer with a couple cows or a couple goats, or if you have thousands of cows on your farm, we're here to make an impact in your life and on Iowa's dairy industry and Iowa's economy. So I'm looking forward to expanding our impact and deepening some of the relationships that we have with Iowa dairy producers. And I'm looking forward to our National Dairy Challenge team will be competing down in Gainesville, Florida. So we're going to drive. It's going to be a fun road trip, hopefully a fun road trip. It's going to be a long one. Hopefully it's a fun one. So I'm looking forward to that and hoping to have a good showing there.
You were talking about the working with dairymen. This year we are just starting our Urban Cow program, which is for those, what I call micro producers, the families who have a couple of cows. We really hadn't done programming that addressed their needs or their situation, and we've started that this year. We'll be completing it in mid 2025, and it's kind of exciting to visit with folks who aren't our traditional 500-600 cow dairies.
I'm looking forward to the continued leadership at Iowa State. I don't mean me, I mean the people at the vet school. This whole high-path avian influenza thing was first diagnosed at Iowa State. We have virologists and pathologists and clinicians working on this. Dr. Magstad was one of the first ones to think of doing this, and it came from a sample from an Iowa State grad who was actually an animal science grad and a vet school grad both. And I think that leadership seems to be continuing. There's going to be a lot of new things coming out about this virus, and some of it's going to be coming from Iowa State.
Yeah, I think I'm looking most forward to probably kind of working on some of the goat projects like the financial analysis. We're going to start, doing some in California. That's kind of more of a national grant that we're working with, and then also getting into the states of Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee. So I just kind of think that's going to be some just very valuable knowledge. And the more I work with the goat producers that are producing milk around the country, the more there's a lot of optimism, enthusiasm with that as well. And I always kind of think that's probably my word is the enthusiasm, which kind of means to be filled with the spirit to the utmost degree. So I just think there's a lot of spirited type things that we work with in Extension to help farmers have higher spirits themselves.
All good thoughts. And as I can reflect and looking into 2025, I think I'm looking forward to some of those continued partnerships and programs that we're offering and how we can build upon those, like Dairy Days, making sure that we're targeting topics that are current to our dairy producers and helping them build relationships with other producers when they're there. So we create some of that social network within those meetings. I'll continue to offer the Boots in the Barn program this year in March. And so we're looking at a one-day program. I think that's a highly impactful program as we talk about how dairy farm women are truly ingrained into the dairy operation and managing these herds, and they're just hungry for information as well. So looking forward to that program too.
And moving forward, I think I'd like to take Jen's word of building relationships and programs to help the producers in Iowa is one of my goals for this upcoming year.
Now I want to take Jen's word. I had my word for 2024 was align, which was actually a great starting word for Wordle. And that's part of my problem with the word that I picked this year. I was like, I can't use it to start my Wordle, but you can use build. It might not be the best starting word, but it is a starting word.
That might be my goal for 2025 is to start Wordle.
You can be on the group text with me and Philip and his daughter.
So through the year, I've started a different Wordle every time, depending on what talk I'm going to have to be given coming up. So I started with rumen and went to flies, and now I'm on ticks and then clade, because that's one of the virus terms. Clade actually works very well. It ends in an E. It has 2 vowels. And my friend and colleague Yuko said that's a terrible starting word. She didn't like that one.
I guess it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, it was interesting going through the year. I would say Dr. Sato and Dr. Algazir were friends before March, and they became co-workers after March, which seems maybe backwards, but it was what happened.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to change my word of the year, but yeah, I think I like your idea of start using a starting word that kind of goes with what you've been thinking about lately, because I think it helps your subconscious kind of ponder whatever's been going on in a fun way.
Well, as we conclude here, any last thoughts from the team?
I just want to thank everybody who's listening and thank the dairy industry of Iowa for making this such a fun place to work. I liked how Larry summed it up with enthusiasm and some of the positive energy that we've been seeing. I think a lot of that comes back to the people who are making the industry work and move forward. And so I want to shout out all of you and thank you for your effort.
It's always amazing to me how the producers are so willing to share information or different practices that we can pass on to other ones. Sometimes I just kind of feel like a honeybee just taking this practice from one farm to the other, and just their willingness to share. You don't see that in all industries, but there's just a great group. And people sometimes think because I work as a dairy specialist that I love cows. I really don't like the cows so much, but I love the people that work with the cows. They're just some great families and great people.
Well, we want to thank our listeners for tuning in, and we want to wish everybody a safe and healthy holiday season with your families and friends. And we look forward to visiting with you and working with you in 2025 as we continue our podcast. And as always, if you have topic ideas for our podcast or other programming, feel free to reach out to us. Or if there's a question you have, you can always email us individually, or we do have a email address that goes out to all of us. That's dairyextension@iastate.edu. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the coming year. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or combination inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/diversity/EXT.